Lethal Company, one of the biggest indie success stories in gaming history, once peaking at 240,000 players, but now left with 8,000. But how? Enter Zeekers, a single indie game developer. It's October 2023 and he's just dropped Lethal Company. 10 years of development across multiple games had led to this release. Those previous games had been met with good reviews but had never become massively popular. But there was something about Lethal Company which would cause it to quickly explode in popularity. Firstly, this game isn't just a horror game, it's also funny. The creatures that chase you look ridiculous and they are only really scary in the point of isolation. And that's when your fight or flight mode really activates in this game.
Oh my god, bro!
And the deaths that follow, well, they're more ridiculous than the monsters. Zeekers himself said that it's actually a game about laughing at death. And then looking at the proximity chat, that brings us to reason number 2, multiplayer. A game where you and your mates can mess around will always be funny, but when you add a proximity chat that is affected by the surrounding world and suddenly cuts off when you die, it really just makes the game that much more funny. And when you put all of this together into a simple gameplay mechanic, you get reason number 3, replayability. The game is simple: collect scrap, survive monsters, and then hit the profit quota without dying. And then you do it all again but with a harder quota. If everyone dies, you lose everything. This means there is an infinite gameplay loop with infinite possibilities for something funny to happen. And these reasons combined make it perfect for reason number 4, clipping. Lethal Company is very good for stream highlights,
Penis in my mouth! Penis in my mouth!
funny moments, and short form content. And this means when people started playing it, it got shared around a lot. And this is what caused that initial 4,000 player base to skyrocket to 240,000 within about 2 or so months. And then there is a final reason, which really is just the cherry on top, and that is the price and hardware requirements. $10 for a game that you can play on a potato PC is an absolute steal. Not everyone has the money to drop on an expensive gaming PC, or even $60 to spend on a game they might not even enjoy. So within a month, Lethal Company had reached its 240,000 player peak. Other developers wanted a piece of the action, and this is where Friendslop comes into play. Friendslop is a subgenre of cooperative video game that focuses on a low barrier of entry and social interaction. These social games tend to be low budget, low cost indie games intended to attract entire friend groups to purchase copies to play together online. And Lethal Company was basically ground zero. Now, I will say the term Friendslop is a bit harsh because it implies that all of the games are bad, which probably is the case if you're chronically online and have no friends. But for the most part, despite most of them being cash grabs, they are still very fun to play. The first game I remember to come out after Lethal Company is Content Warning. This came out around April of 2024, which conveniently was timed around the end of the hype drop-off of Lethal Company. And the point is to record videos of you and your mates getting chased by monsters in the game to get views. It's kind of like a clip farm simulator really, and as fun as it is, to me it's a lot more repetitive than Lethal Company was. And a lot of the things that are funny are more forced because you kind of have to do that to get better views in the game. Now after this, not much Friendslop really released. Lethal Company stayed around 20 to 30,000 players, and after all, it was the best Friendslop game of its kind. There was still no competition for Lethal Company to share its player base with. That was up until 2025 when r.e.p.o released, and this is where it all went downhill. Unlike Content Warning, it was apparent that r.e.p.o had been in development for quite some time, and this game, despite on paper being very similar to Lethal Company, feels completely different. You still collect scrap from different buildings with different monsters chasing you, but the gameplay mechanics are vastly different, being much more physics based. The game in general is much more cartoonish, and I'd say it focuses more on the fun side than the horror. And from personal experience, this results in everyone messing around with each other more than just playing the game for the quotas and goals. So, two well-made games, two similar concepts but completely different playing styles. These two should go well side by side like Need for Speed and Forza, shouldn't they? Right? Well, not quite. There is one big difference between these two games. r.e.p.o has a dev team and Lethal Company does not. So how does this change things? Well, r.e.p.o has more content, even from release. The dev team is said to be small with just 3 people, but that is still potential for 3 times the amount of content to drop. And when you compare that to Lethal Company, I feel like by the time you've done 5 quotas, you really have managed to experience a lot of what the game has to offer. And you are really just left with funny things to happen. Meanwhile, I'd say r.e.p.o is full of a lot more stuff to mess around with and find out. In my opinion, it's also much more difficult to play and advance to higher quotas and levels, mostly due to the physics and also some of the monsters.
Yeah,
Fuck!
that's not.
Oh
my, all
Meaning it takes a lot more time to get some of the things that the game does offer. One thing to note here is during this entire thing, Zeekerss had been suffering with burnout, and he had been since around mid-2024 because of the rising pressure of the success of the game, a bit like Notch with Minecraft. And that definitely had a big effect on how much content was getting added to Lethal Company. We can see it's because even though Lethal Company had more updates, when you compare how much has been actually added between it and r.e.p.o, it's actually a similar amount of things. And we can also see the effects of r.e.p.o. as soon as it releases. Lethal Company's player base starts to drop down slowly over the next few months. Lethal Company is the pioneer of the Friendslop genre, and at the time of its release it didn't have competition other than maybe Among Us. So it's inevitable that eventually the player base would decline when more competition popped up, such as r.e.p.o, which by the numbers is clearly preferred by the players. And r.e.p.o basically cemented Friendslop as a genre by being the next big hit success after Lethal Company. And then Friendslop grew, creating a bigger and more saturated market, where players are all splitting to play completely different games, leaving Lethal Company with 7,000 players. But update V80 is a sign of hope. A lot was added during this update, including new monsters, maps, and lots of small details that improve the quality of the game. The amount of stuff added in V80 is about the same as a r.e.p.o update, which could imply that Zeekerss is no longer as burnt out as he was. And this update brought the player count back up to 20k for April, showing that people do still want to play this game. So if updates like this keep happening, then Lethal Company could definitely make a comeback, which is something I would love to see. Lethal Company is one of my favourite games of all time, and I do really miss playing it during its peak, that being with friends or even with randoms. It brought me so much fun over the past few years, and I would just love to see it more popular again. Do you think Lethal Company has a chance of coming back? Comment down below.